The sacrifice. The storm of nebula dust swirled around Nera as she struggled against the bonds securing her to the ancient beacon. Her iridescent scales flashed with anger and fear, reflecting the eerie purple glow of the abandoned space station drifting at the edge of the Marinian territory. The ceremonial markings painted across her body, once a symbol of her prestigious position as a senior scientist, now marked her as something else entirely. A sacrifice. Her gills flared uselessly, trying to extract oxygen from an atmosphere not designed for her kind. The rib-breather mask they'd left her with had perhaps 2 hours of viable mixture left, just enough time for her to contemplate her impending death before suffocating. How quickly everything had changed. Just 3 cycles ago, she had been leading the most ambitious exploration mission in Marinian history. Now she was abandoned by her own people, left as an offering to appease the mysterious entities they called the Void Hunters. "This is barbaric," she whispered to herself, the words echoing in her helmet. "We're supposed to be a civilization of science, not superstition." But science had failed to explain the disappearances. 23 Marinian vessels had vanished in this sector over the past solar cycle. No distress calls, no debris, just gone. And when Nera's expedition had returned with only half its crew, babbling about shadows moving between the stars, the elders had made their decision. The last calamity had been averted with a sacrifice. So would this one. The station creaked around her, the ancient human structure groaning as it continued its slow orbital decay. The Marinians had chosen this place deliberately, a relic from the species they'd observed but never contacted. The humans had abandoned this outpost decades ago, making it the perfect altar for their offering. Something shifted in the shadows beyond the chamber's open doorway. Nera tensed, straining against the energized cuffs that held her wrists and ankles to the beacon. Was it already happening? Were the Void Hunters coming to claim her? "If you're going to kill me," she called out, her voice steadier than she felt, "at least show yourselves first." More movement, a scraping sound, then a voice. Rough, unfamiliar, speaking a language her translator implant struggled to process before finally converting. "Well, you're certainly in a predicament, aren't you?" A figure stepped into the purple-tinged light, bipedal, suited in battered environmental armor that had seen better days. Not a Void Hunter. Something else entirely. A human. Nera had only seen humans in research files. This specimen was tall, broad-shouldered, with a cracked visor revealing glimpses of dark skin and alert eyes. Various tools and weapons hung from a utility belt, and a large pack was slung over one shoulder. "You understand me?" the human asked, approaching cautiously. Her translator processed the words with only minimal delay. "Yes, your language pattern is in our databases." "Interesting." The human circled her slowly, examining the bindings without touching them. "You're a long way from water. Fish folk." "Marinian," she corrected automatically. "We're amphibious, not strictly aquatic." "Forgive my xenobiology," the human replied with what her cultural databases suggested with sarcasm. "More pressing question. Why are you strapped to my beacon?" "Your beacon?" "Well, humanity's beacon. Outpost Epsilon 9. Abandoned during the corporate wars, but still sending out its identification signal on old frequencies." The human tapped the console beside her. "I'm Commander Marcus Reed, former Earth Alliance Reclamation Corps, current independent salvage operator. I am Senior Science Director Nera Telvasher of the Marinian Exploration Authority." She would maintain her dignity, even now. Or I was, until recently. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "And now, you're what?" "Station decoration. A sacrifice." The word tasted bitter. "My people believe there are entities hunting in this sector. They think offering me will appease them." "That's..." Marcus seemed to search for the appropriate word. "Barbaric." Nera couldn't help but laugh. A short, pained sound. My exact thought. A distant metallic groan echoed through the station, causing Marcus to glance sharply toward the corridor. He unholstered what appeared to be a weapon, checking its settings. "Your people left you here alone?" he asked, voice lower now. "They believe solitude enhances the ritual," Nara explained. "The Void Hunters are supposed to come for me soon." "Void Hunters?" Marcus's posture changed subtly, tensing. "You mean the shadow drones?" Nara's gills flared in surprise. "You know of them? Let's just say they're the reason this station was abandoned." His eyes narrowed. "And they don't respond well to sacrifices. They just get hungrier." Another sound, closer this time. A sliding, scraping noise like metal against metal. Marcus moved with surprising speed, positioning himself between Nara and the doorway. "Your rebrother's running low," he observed without turning. "How long?" "Perhaps 2 hours. Won't need that long." He reached for the control panel beside her bonds. "Either will be gone, or will be dead." The casual way he included himself in her fate startled Nara. "You're helping me. Why?" Marcus's fingers worked quickly over the panel. 3 reasons. First, I don't approve of sentient sacrifices, regardless of species. Second, what's hunting you will hunt me next if I leave you. And third, the cuffs around her wrists suddenly deactivated, releasing her. "I could use someone who knows what's happening in this sector." Nara rubbed her wrists, blue blood flowing back into her webbed hands. "The elders would say you've doomed us both." "The elders aren't here." Marcus handed her a small device from his pack. "Emergency rebreather. Human design, but it should filter enough for your physiology to manage for a few hours." She took it, surprised at his preparedness. "You carry alien breathing apparatus regularly." "I salvage. I collect useful things." He shrugged. "Sometimes I meet interesting people who need to breathe. Can you move?" Nara stood shakily, her leg muscles protesting after hours secured to the beacon. "Yes, but..." Her words were cut short by a piercing screech that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The station's lights flickered, plunging them momentarily into darkness before the emergency systems bathed everything in blood red. Marcus swore in what she assumed was his native tongue. "They know the sacrifice pattern's been interrupted." "What are they?" Nara demanded, steadying herself against the beacon. "The elders speak only of shadows between stars, but you call them drones. Questions later. Running now." Marcus grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a different exit than the one he'd entered through. "My ship is docked on the auxiliary port. We have maybe 5 minutes before this whole section is swarming." They moved through corridors that seemed both alien and strangely familiar to Nara. Human architecture, but reminiscent of early Marinian space habitats, form following function across species barriers. Marcus moved with the confidence of someone who had studied the station's layout extensively, taking turns without hesitation. "You've been here before," she observed between labored breaths, the unfamiliar rebreather making normal respiration difficult. 3 times. Never stayed long." He slowed at an intersection, checking a device on his wrist. "This place has a bad reputation, even among scavengers. Because of the Void Hunters." Marcus nodded. "They're drawn to certain energy signatures. The old human beacons emit the exact frequency they home in on. Your people probably tracked the disappearances to these coordinates without understanding why." Another screech, closer this time, accompanied by the sound of metal being torn. Nara's scales rippled in instinctive fear response. "What do they want?" she asked. "Same thing most predators want." Marcus picked up the pace again. "To feed." They reached a sealed bulkhead. Marcus placed his hand against a scanner that, surprisingly, still functioned, recognizing his biometrics. The massive door began to slide open with agonizing slowness. "The Reclamation Corps never fully decommissioned this place," he explained. "Too many classified projects. They just removed the critical tech and left." Through the widening gap, Nara could see a small ship docked at an airlock, sleek, weathered, clearly designed for speed rather than comfort. Freedom, just meters away. That's when she saw it, a shifting darkness in the corridor behind them, moving in a way that defied natural physics. Not a solid entity, but something that seemed to exist in multiple spatial planes simultaneously. Where it passed, the metal of the station's walls appeared to age and corrode instantly. "Marcus," she whispered, throat constricting. "I know." He didn't look back, instead drawing his weapon. "Get through the bulkhead. Don't stop." The gap was now wide enough for them to pass. Nera hesitated only briefly before slipping through. The human followed immediately after, slamming an emergency override that caused the bulkhead to begin closing again. Not fast enough. The shadow thing accelerated, a tendril of darkness stretching toward the narrowing gap. Marcus fired his weapon, not at the entity, but at the bulkhead control panel. Sparks erupted, and the massive door slammed shut with sudden force, severing the reaching tendril. The high-pitched wailing penetrated the metal barrier, raising the fine crest along Nera's spine. "That won't hold it for long," Marcus said grimly, already moving toward his ship. "These things exist partially out of phase with normal spacetime. Physical barriers only slow them down." They reached the airlock, Marcus working quickly to disengage the docking clamps. Nara watched in horrified fascination as the severed tendril on their side of the bulkhead writhed on the floor, its edges blurring in and out of reality before dissolving into acrid smoke. "What are they really?" she asked, unable to tear her eyes away. "The official Earth Alliance classification is phase-shift predatory organism," Marcus replied, finishing the undocking sequence. "Discovered during early wormhole experiments. We created a breach, and they came through. Been hunting us ever since." The airlock cycled open, revealing the compact interior of his vessel. It was cluttered but organized, every surface covered with equipment, supplies, or artifacts collected during his salvage operations. "Welcome aboard the Scavenger's Fortune," Marcus said, ushering her inside. "It's not pretty, but it's fast." As the airlock sealed behind them, an ominous creaking sound came from the bulkhead. Tendrils of darkness began to seep through seams in the metal. "Strap in," Marcus ordered, sliding into the pilot's seat and initiating a rapid startup sequence. "This is going to be rough." Nera found a co-pilot's chair and secured the unfamiliar harness as best she could. Through the viewport, she watched with mounting dread as more shadow entities materialized near the station, drawn to their location. "The Void Hunters," she whispered. "They're real." "Very real," Marcus confirmed, hands flying over the controls. "And very persistent." The ship disengaged from the dock with a violent lurch, thrusters firing at maximum capacity. The sudden acceleration forced Nera back into her seat, her alien physiology struggling to adapt to the G-forces. Through the viewport, she watched the station recede, her intended place of death becoming smaller against the backdrop of stars. The shadow entities swarmed around it like a black cloud, their movements erratic and unsettling. "They won't follow?" she asked, not entirely convinced of their escape. "Not immediately. They're territorial around the beacon signals." Marcus adjusted their course, putting a nearby asteroid belt between them and the station. "But they remember. And they hunt." The reality of her situation began to sink in. She was alive, but a fugitive. The sacrifice ritual had been interrupted. Whatever calamity the elders believed would befall their people was now unpreventable. "I can never go home," she realized aloud. Marcus glanced at her, his expression unreadable through his cracked visor. "Not safely, no. Your people would just try again, wouldn't they?" Nera nodded slowly. "The ritual is sacred to them. Failure means catastrophe. Then we need to find another solution." Marcus finally removed his helmet, revealing a face lined with experience but not unkindness. His eyes were sharp, assessing. "One that doesn't involve feeding sentient beings to interdimensional predators." "We?" Nara questioned, surprised at his continued use of the plural. "You're a scientist. I'm a survivor with a ship full of salvaged tech and data about these things that your people clearly don't have." He shrugged as if the logic was obvious. "Seems like we might accomplish more together than separately." As the ship accelerated away from the station and deeper into the asteroid field, Nera felt something she hadn't expected to feel again. Hope. Not just for herself, but perhaps for her people as well. Marcus Reed, she said, tasting the unfamiliar name. Why would a human risk his life for a Marinian he's never met? He was quiet for a long moment, adjusting controls and checking sensor readings before answering. Because someone once told me that what sets humans apart isn't our technology or our adaptability, he finally said. It's that at our best, we still recognize ourselves in others, even when they have scales instead of skin. The ship's engines hummed as they pushed deeper into the darkness, leaving the hunting shadows behind. For now. Now, Marcus continued, setting the autopilot and turning his chair to face her fully. Tell me everything you know about these disappearances, and I'll tell you everything I know about what's really hunting both our species. Nera felt her scientific mind awakening from the fog of fear and ritual. This human's intervention had not only saved her life, but offered something the Elders' traditions never had. A chance to understand rather than merely appease. Where do we begin? She asked. Marcus smiled, a surprisingly warm expression on his weathered face. With the truth, always the best place to start. Unexpected alliance. The scavenger's fortune cut silently through the debris field, its stealth systems engaged to mask their energy signature. Inside the cramped command center, Marcus monitored the sensors while Nera studied the data scrolling across the secondary console. 6 hours had passed since their escape from the station, and the immediate danger had faded, replaced by the more complex challenge of determining their next move. Your ship's database is eclectic, Nera observed, her webbed fingers navigating the human interface with surprising dexterity. Military specs alongside archaeological surveys, xenobiology journals, and what appears to be a collection of pre-collapse entertainment files. Marcus smiled faintly without looking up from his controls. I contain multitudes. Is that a human expression? Ancient human poetry. He adjusted their course slightly, guiding them deeper into the asteroid field. I salvage information too, not just technology. Knowledge is the most valuable commodity in a fractured galaxy. Nera couldn't argue with that logic. As a scientist, she had dedicated her life to the pursuit of knowledge, a pursuit that had ultimately led to her exile. She shifted uncomfortably in the seat designed for human anatomy, her amphibious form struggling to find a natural position. These phase-shift organisms, she said, returning to the main topic of their discussion. Your records indicate they first appeared 70 Earth years ago during experimental wormhole testing. Marcus nodded. The Prometheus Project, humanity's first attempt to create stable artificial wormholes for instantaneous travel. The scientists thought they were opening a door to another part of our universe. But instead, they created a breach into what exactly? That's the trillion-credit question. Marcus tapped a command sequence, bringing up classified files that bore the faded emblem of the Earth Alliance Science Division. The leading theory is that they opened a passage into a dimension that exists alongside ours, but operates on different physical principles. The entities came through, and they found our reality. Consumable. Nera's crest flattened against her skull, a Marinian expression of deep concern. Consumable how? They feed on certain energy wavelengths, particularly the kind produced by our early wormhole technology, and, unfortunately, the emergency beacons that were subsequently placed throughout this sector. The implications struck Nera with chilling clarity. So my people have been inadvertently luring these predators by investigating the human beacons, and then offering sacrifices to appease them, which only teaches them to associate your species with food. Marcus's voice carried no judgment, only a grim pragmatism. A classic predator-prey reinforcement cycle. Nera closed her eyes briefly, absorbing this revelation. The Elders' most sacred ritual, their response to cosmic threats for generations, was not only ineffective but actively harmful. My expedition, she said quietly. We discovered one of these beacons at the edge of the Vortex Nebula. 3 of our crew disappeared while investigating it. When I ordered a retreat instead of continuing the mission as planned, the elders deemed it a failure of courage. You made the right call, Marcus replied. Those who disappeared were already gone, consumed. The entities don't just take physical bodies. They devour the energy patterns that make up consciousness itself. A shudder passed through Nera's scales. A fate worse than death. Considerably worse. The ship's proximity alarm suddenly chimed, interrupting their conversation. Marcus quickly brought up the tactical display, his expression tightening. Marinian patrol vessel, he announced. Stealth systems are holding for now, but they're systematically scanning this sector. Looking for you, I'd wager. Nera leaned forward, recognizing the ship configuration. Seeker class, designed for recovery operations. Her voice turned bitter. They're not searching for a survivor. They're confirming the sacrifice was completed. Then we need to ensure they find nothing. Marcus altered their course, guiding the ship toward a particularly dense cluster of asteroids. There's an old mining outpost embedded in one of the larger rocks ahead, abandoned during the Helium-3 crash, but the basic life support should still function. You seem to know an awful lot about abandoned outposts, Nera observed. A wry smile crossed Marcus's face. In my line of work, knowing where to hide is as important as knowing what to salvage. The scavenger's fortune slipped between the massive asteroids with practiced precision, approaching what appeared to be nothing more than another cratered rock until Marcus activated a specific frequency scanner. Suddenly, artificial structures became visible, habitat modules and equipment bays carved directly into the asteroid's surface, concealed by adaptive camouflage technology. Impressive, Nera admitted. This doesn't match any human mining operation in our databases. It wouldn't. This was a Black Ops resource extraction site. Officially, it never existed. Marcus guided the ship toward a concealed docking bay, perfect for 2 fugitives who also shouldn't exist. The docking procedure was executed with minimal power usage, further reducing their chances of detection. As the ship settled into the hidden bay, the external camouflage systems automatically extended to conceal their vessel as well. The Marinian patrol will continue its search pattern for approximately 12 hours before reporting back, Nera calculated, studying their sensor readings. We should remain undetected if we minimize power usage. Agreed. Marcus powered down non-essential systems, leaving only basic life support and passive sensors active. Let's use that time to figure out our next steps and to address your breathing situation more permanently. Nera touched the emergency rebreather he had given her earlier, a stopgap measure that was already beginning to falter. As an amphibious species, Marinians could survive in atmospheric conditions for limited periods, but eventually required either water immersion or specialized breathing assistance. Do you have something more suitable? She asked, trying to keep the urgency from her voice. Marcus nodded, rising from his seat. I might. Follow me. He led her through the narrow corridors of his ship to a storage compartment near the aft section. Inside, organized with surprising meticulousness, were dozens of sealed containers labeled in various languages, some human, others clearly alien. I've encountered 17 sentient species during my salvage career, Marcus explained, searching through the containers. Collected helpful items for most of them. Call it professional courtesy or just good business sense. He located a container marked with symbols resembling Marinian script and unsealed it, revealing a device that Nera recognized immediately. A hydration respirator. She couldn't hide her surprise. This is Marinian technology. Advanced military grade, at that. Marcus handed it to her, recovered it from a derelict exploration vessel about 2 years ago. The crew was already gone, taken by the phase shift organisms before I arrived. I salvaged what I could. Nera examined the device with both relief and a sense of unease. This could sustain me indefinitely, but she looked up at him, eyes narrowing slightly. Why would you keep technology specifically suited for a species you'd never encountered personally? It was a fair question, and Marcus seemed to appreciate her caution rather than take offense. "I told you, I collect useful things." He gestured around the storage room. "Every piece here represents a potential ally, a possible customer, or someone who might need help someday. The galaxy's a vast place, but patterns repeat. I figured if I found one Marinian ship, I'd eventually encounter others." His explanation was logical, but something in his tone suggested there was more to the story. Nara decided not to press the issue for now. She needed the respirator regardless of his motives for having it. She attached the device to her neck membrane, feeling immediate relief as properly hydrated air flowed into her respiratory system. Her gills relaxed, and the persistent headache that had been building subsided. "Thank you," she said, sincerity evident in her voice. "This will make our partnership considerably more viable." "Good, because we have work to do." Marcus led her back toward the command center, but instead of returning to the pilot's seat, he accessed a concealed panel in the bulkhead, revealing a small planning room equipped with holographic projectors. "If we're going to address the phase shift threat and keep your people from continuing their sacrifices, we need a strategy." The holographic system activated, displaying a three-dimensional map of the sector. Small red points indicated the locations of known human beacons, while blue markers showed sites of confirmed Marinian vessel disappearances. "The pattern is unmistakable," Nara observed, her scientific mind fully engaged. Every disappearance occurred within 0.8 spatial units of a beacon. Marcus nodded. "The entities are drawn to the beacons, then hunt anything that approaches. But there's something else." He manipulated the display, adding a chronological element that showed the sequence of disappearances over time. "They're expanding their hunting radius, slowly but consistently." Nara studied the progression with growing alarm. If this trend continues, they'll reach the outer Marinian colonies within 16 cycles. "And eventually Earth's frontier settlements," Marcus added grimly. "This isn't just your people's problem anymore. It's becoming everyone's problem." "So what's your proposal?" Nara asked, admiring the humans' methodical approach despite the circumstances. "We can't possibly deactivate all the beacons scattered throughout the sector." "No, but we might be able to modify them." Marcus brought up technical schematics for the emergency beacons. "The entities are attracted to a specific energy frequency. If we could alter that frequency without shutting down the beacons entirely, we could potentially repel the phase-shift organisms rather than attract them." Nara finished, her crest rising with excitement. "A simple inversion of the quantum resonance pattern might be sufficient." Marcus looked at her with newfound respect. "You understand quantum mechanics." "I'm a scientist, Commander Reed. My specialization is in cross-dimensional energy patterns, precisely why I was leading the expedition that encountered your beacon." For the first time since their escape, Marcus laughed. A genuine sound of surprised delight. "The universe has a strange sense of humor. I rescue a Marinian sacrifice who happens to be an expert in exactly what we need." "Perhaps not coincidence," Nara suggested. "The elders choose their sacrifices carefully. They believe my knowledge made me particularly appealing to the Void Hunters." A bitter note entered her voice. They weren't entirely wrong, just about the reason why. Their discussion was interrupted by an alert from the passive sensors. Marcus quickly checked the readings, his expression turning serious once more. "The Marinian patrol is changing course," he reported. "They're heading directly for the station where you were being held." Nara moved beside him, studying the sensor data. "They're going to confirm whether the sacrifice was completed. And when they find you missing and signs of the phase-shift organisms still present, they'll know the ritual failed," Nara concluded. "They'll initiate emergency protocols, including, most likely, preparing another sacrifice." Marcus's jaw tightened. "We need to move faster than we thought. How quickly could you develop a modification for the beacon frequency?" Nara considered the question, reviewing the technical schematics. "With proper equipment, perhaps 2 standard days. But we'd need to test it on an actual beacon. which means returning to a location we know is hunting territory. Marcus didn't seem disturbed by this prospect, merely calculating. We'll need a diversion, something to occupy the entities while we work. What exactly did you have in mind? Nara asked, already suspecting she wouldn't like the answer. Marcus's smile held no humor this time. The phase shift organisms are drawn to certain energy signatures, yes, so we give them what they want, just not where we'll be. Before Nara could question him further, a distant metallic groan echoed through the asteroid. Both of them tensed, looking toward the sound. This outpost was supposed to be abandoned, Nara whispered. It was. Marcus drew his sidearm, moving to a storage locker and retrieving a second weapon, which he offered to Nara. Take this. Do you know how to use projectile weapons? She accepted the unfamiliar device with tentative hands. Theoretically, point and discharge. Close enough, Marcus replied, already moving toward the exit. Stay behind me. It's probably just the structure settling, but I'd rather not make assumptions. They moved cautiously through the ship's airlock and into the outpost proper. The artificial gravity was minimal, giving each step a floating quality that Nara, with her aquatic adaptations, managed more gracefully than Marcus seemed to expect. The outpost corridors were dark, illuminated only by the emergency lights from Marcus's suit and the natural bioluminescence of Nara's scale patterns. The air was stale but breathable, at least for Marcus. Nara remained fully dependent on her respirator. Another sound echoed through the darkness. Closer this time. Definitely movement. Something's here, Nara whispered, her crest flattening against her skull in instinctive response to danger. Marcus nodded, signaling for silence as they approached a junction in the corridor. He peered carefully around the corner, then immediately pulled back, his expression tight. Phase shift organism? Nara asked, dread building in her chest. Worse, Marcus replied. Marinians. Nara's eyes widened. Impossible. The patrol ship is nowhere near. Not the patrol. Different group. Armed. 4 of them, setting up some kind of equipment. He glanced at her. Friends of yours? She risked a quick look around the corner, then withdrew, her scales rippling with alarm. Executor unit. Elite enforcers who ensure rituals are properly completed. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They're not here to rescue me. They're here to verify my death, or ensure it happens. How did they find this place? Marcus demanded, checking his weapon's charge. The same way you did, I imagine, Nara replied. This outpost may be officially non-existent, but patterns repeat, as you said. Hidden sites tend to be discovered multiple times by different parties. We need to get back to the ship, Marcus decided. There's another exit through the secondary maintenance shaft, if we're quick. His words were cut short by a harsh voice echoing through the corridors, speaking Marinian, but translated by Nara's implant for Marcus's benefit. Science Director Nara Telvasher, the voice called out. We know you are here with the human. The sacrifice was interrupted, but it can still be completed. Surrender yourself, and the human may depart unharmed. Nara and Marcus exchanged glances. They're lying, she said quietly. The executor unit doesn't leave witnesses. I gathered that, Marcus replied dryly. Alternative exit it is. Follow me and stay low. They retreated down the corridor, moving as silently as possible toward what Marcus had indicated was a maintenance access point. They had nearly reached it when the distant sound of machinery powering up froze them in place. What is that? Marcus whispered. Nara's expression was grim. Resonance scanner. It will detect all life forms within the outpost regardless of shielding. She looked at him with sudden resolve. You need to go. Take your ship and leave while you can. Marcus stared at her incredulously. I didn't rescue you from one sacrifice just to let you walk into another. This isn't about sacrifice anymore, Nara argued. The executors won't stop hunting us. If we separate, you at least have a chance to escape and continue our work. Our work, Marcus repeated, emphasizing the word. which means we do it together or not at all. The scanner's hum intensified, and footsteps could be heard approaching their position. Time was running out. "Do you trust me?" Marcus asked suddenly. Nera hesitated only briefly before nodding. Against all logic, yes. "Good. Then get ready to run." He reached into a pocket and removed what appeared to be a small metal sphere. "When I activate this, head for the ship. Don't wait for me." "What is it?" "Insurance policy." Marcus grinned, the expression surprisingly fierce. "One of humanity's more practical contributions to galactic technology. A really good distraction." Before Nera could protest, Marcus activated the device and hurled it in the direction of the approaching executors. The sphere bounced once, then erupted in a blinding flash, accompanied by a disorienting sonic pulse. Shouts of confusion and pain echoed down the corridor as Marcus grabbed Nera's arm, pulling her toward the maintenance shaft. Now. They ran, the sound of their pursuit momentarily delayed by Marcus's device. The maintenance shaft was narrow, forcing them to move in single file through the dusty confines of the asteroid service tunnels. "Your ship is still 3 junctions away," Nara called from behind him. "The scanner will recalibrate within moments." "Then we don't waste those moments," Marcus replied, increasing his pace despite the awkward confines. They emerged into a secondary docking area, just as alarms began blaring throughout the outpost. The scavenger's fortune sat exactly where